The old woman was already crying when the wealthy store director laughed at her shoes. Not a polite little laugh either, but a sharp, brittle sound of disgust that cracked through Judge Caprio's courtroom and made every head turn at once. The woman at the defense table lowered her eyes to the floor, to the cracked brown loafers she had polished so carefully that morning, and the store director leaned back in her white blazer and said loud enough for the gallery to hear, "Your Honor, if she spent half as much energy paying for things as she does performing for sympathy, we wouldn't be here." A gasp moved through the room. The bailiff stiffened. A young clerk stopped typing. Judge Caprio looked up slowly, and in that calm, almost gentle silence of his, something changed. Everyone felt it. This was no longer going to be a routine petty theft hearing. This was about humiliation, class, dignity, and the terrible mistake of mistaking poverty for guilt. If you've ever wanted to see the exact moment arrogance talks itself into destruction, stay with this story and tell me in the comments when you knew the courtroom had turned, because by the end of this hearing, one sentence from Judge Caprio would strip all the shine off privilege and leave only truth standing. The woman's name was Teresa Alvarez. 72 years old, widow, mother of 3, though only one still lived with her now, a 50-year-old son named Daniel, who had suffered a stroke and could no longer work steadily. Teresa cleaned church linens for cash, hemmed pants for neighbors when her eyes allowed it, and stretched every dollar until it felt like a prayer. She stood in court, wearing a faded blue coat with a missing button, her silver hair pinned neatly back, hands small and tremulous, but carefully folded over a grocery envelope full of receipts, medicine instructions, and bus transfers. She looked frightened, yes, but not broken. There was dignity in the way she held her chin, in the way she answered the clerk with "yes, sir," in the way she kept apologizing for things that should never have required apology at all. Across from her sat Celeste Barron, regional director of Barron Market Hall, daughter of the chain's millionaire founder, the kind of woman who wore wealth the way some people wear armor. Her suit was winter white, her gold watch flashed when she moved, and her lipstick was the hard red of someone who preferred being admired to being loved. She was not technically the complainant, the store was, but she had insisted on attending, insisted on protecting the integrity of the brand, and she carried herself with the confidence of a person who believed institutions existed mainly to confirm her instincts. On paper, the case seemed embarrassingly simple. Teresa Alvarez had been stopped outside Barron Market Hall with unpaid items in her shopping cart: a loaf of bread, generic soup, a pack of adult incontinence pads, cough medicine, and a rotisserie chicken discounted near closing time. Total value, $46.12. Store security said she passed the final checkout point without paying. Teresa said she had tried to pay, realized her card was short, asked the cashier to remove the chicken and cough medicine, and thought the remaining items had gone through when the machine beeped and printed paper. Instead, security grabbed her by the arm outside, accused her of stealing, and called police before she could understand what was happening. Celeste's lawyer called it straightforward theft. Teresa called it a mistake. Celeste called it something uglier. "People like this always have a story," she said, not even pretending to lower her voice. "Confusion is just theft in softer clothing." The courtroom went silent. Judge Caprio turned one page in the file, then looked at Teresa. "Mrs. Alvarez," he said gently, "why were you buying these specific items that night?" Teresa swallowed hard. Her voice came out thin but steady. She said the pads were for her son. The soup was because he could swallow it easily on bad days. The bread was because she could make it last 3 breakfasts. The cough medicine was for herself, though she had planned to put it back if the total was too high. The chicken, she admitted with a kind of shame that broke the room's heart, was supposed to be a treat because it had been her late husband's birthday. No one in the gallery moved. Then Judge Caprio asked the question that made even Celeste's attorney shift in his chair. "How much money did Mrs. Alvarez have with her when she entered your store?" Celeste blinked. That's irrelevant. Caprio's face didn't change. No, ma'am. In a case where intent is everything, it may be the only thing. That's when everything changed. The defense produced Teresa's purse inventory taken by the arresting officer. $38 in cash, mostly singles and coins, a church envelope containing $8 marked gas bill, and a debit card with a balance of $12.04. Enough to buy some of the items, enough to prove she had not walked in empty-handed looking to steal. Teresa's eyes filled, not with drama, but with the exhausted humiliation of having her poverty read aloud like evidence. Celeste recovered quickly. "So she was short," she said coolly. "That doesn't help her." "No," Judge Caprio said, his voice quiet and devastating. "It helps me." The store's security supervisor testified next. He was broad, rehearsed, and a little too polished. He claimed Teresa moved suspiciously, hovered at self-checkout, then pushed the card out in a hurry. But under questioning, he admitted he never saw her conceal anything. He admitted she stopped when called. He admitted she kept saying, "Please check the machine, I thought it went through." Then the defense asked whether Barron Market had internal loss prevention profiling guidance. Celeste's lawyer objected immediately. Too broad, irrelevant, fishing expedition. Judge Caprio allowed the question. A printed staff memo was entered into evidence. Internal language, cold, corporate, ugly. Watch for high-risk optics. Oversized coats, reusable bags, coin-counting customers, senior discount disputes, visibly unstable payment methods. Another line had been highlighted by the defense. Maintain premium customer comfort by rapid intervention before low-confidence subjects linger near exit. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Caprio lowered his glasses and read the line again. Then came CCTV footage. There was Teresa at self-checkout under the bright fluorescent wash, leaning forward to squint at the screen. She scanned every item carefully. She counted bills twice. She inserted her card. She frowned when the total changed. She called for help. A cashier came over, removed 2 items, tapped the screen, and spoke briefly. Teresa nodded, gathered the bagged groceries, and reached for the printed slip. The video had no audio, but it showed enough. She did not sneak. She did not rush. She did not look around like a thief. She looked like an elderly woman trying not to make a mistake in a system designed by people who no longer imagine confusion as innocent. The courtroom went dead silent, but the defense had more. The cashier was called, 19 years old, nervous. She testified that Teresa had indeed asked to remove the chicken and cough medicine. She testified the self-checkout froze, then rebooted. She testified she told management she wasn't sure the transaction had processed properly. She testified Mr. Kane, the security supervisor, told her not to worry because, in his words, corporate wants these old charity cases stopped at the door, not at the machine. Celeste sat up straight for the first time, color rising hot in her face. That is absolutely not policy. The defense then produced text messages from the store manager to Celeste Barron on the week the store launched its upscale rebrand. One read, "We need fewer coupon types after 8 p.m. They kill the atmosphere." Another, "Security is pushing out the lingerers. Better customer mix already." And finally the message that made the entire room turn toward Celeste with open disbelief. "If the old woman in the blue coat comes back, stop her. She counts coins forever and makes the place look desperate." A woman in the back row covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Celeste's face hardened into something meaner than confidence. "This is a business," she snapped. "We are not required to turn a premium store into a shelter cafeteria." The courtroom went silent again, even deeper this time, as if the room itself recoiled. Judge Caprio looked at her for a long moment. "No, Ms. Barron," he said softly, "but you are required not to criminalize people for being poor." Her attorney tried to interrupt, but Caprio raised one hand and the man sank back down. He turned to Teresa. Mrs. Alvarez, did you intend to steal? Teresa shook her head so quickly it was almost painful to watch. Never, Your Honor. I was embarrassed I didn't have enough. I would have put everything back. I kept saying I would put it back. Her voice trembled, then steadied. I'm poor. I'm not a thief. There it was, simple, unadorned, the whole truth of the case. Judge Caprio leaned back and let the silence sit over the room until it became unbearable. Then he began the monologue that people in that city would repeat for months. This court sees theft cases every week, he said. What I do not see every week is an institution so eager to protect its image that it confuses fragility with criminal intent. Mrs. Alvarez did not hide these items. She did not flee. She did not deceive. She struggled at a machine, asked for help, and was then treated as though poverty itself were probable cause. His eyes shifted to Celeste. You wrapped contempt in brand language and called it policy. You targeted the elderly, the embarrassed, the visibly struggling, and you did it not because they were dangerous, but because they offended your aesthetic. Celeste tried to hold his gaze. She couldn't. Caprio's voice remained calm, which made every word hit harder. Let me make this plain enough for every polished executive who thinks dignity belongs only to people with platinum cards. Frayed coats are not evidence, coin counting is not concealment, and poverty is not a crime. The line landed like thunder. Even the court reporter paused before typing it. If your store cannot tell the difference between confusion and theft, then your problem is not loss prevention, it is moral bankruptcy. By then Celeste had gone from arrogant to defensive to visibly collapsing in her chair. The confidence had drained out of her face, leaving something flat and stunned behind it. Judge Caprio dismissed the charge in full. Then he went further. He referred the store's detention practices to the city attorney for civil rights review, ordered Teresa's arrest record expunged immediately, and directed Baron Market to return every confiscated personal item, including the grocery envelope she had dropped when security grabbed her. He also permitted Teresa's counsel to pursue sanctions for bad faith prosecution based on the withheld transaction records and internal profiling messages. Teresa began to cry then, but quietly, with one hand pressed to her lips. Not theatrical tears. The tears of a person who had spent too many years apologizing for surviving. Judge Caprio's voice softened. Mrs. Alvarez, he said, you came in here burdened by shame that did not belong to you. Leave without it. Months later, Baron Market settled multiple complaints from elderly and low-income customers. The profiling memo went public. Celeste Baron resigned from her regional role under a storm of outrage. A neighborhood legal clinic used Teresa's case to challenge private security abuse across the district, and Teresa herself, her church raised enough money to cover Daniel's medical supplies for a year. The local diner sent hot meals twice a week. People who had passed her in silence for years began stopping to ask if she needed anything. Justice had done what it rarely gets credit for doing. It didn't just clear her name, it returned her place in the world, and maybe that was the deepest truth in the room that day. Some people think dignity is a luxury item, reserved for those who can afford polished shoes and easy transactions. Judge Caprio reminded everyone listening that dignity is not sold by the pound, not scanned by a machine, not granted by a market. It belongs to the human being first. If this story hit you in the chest, tell me in the comments which moment broke you most. And if you believe courts matter most when they protect the people money tries to humiliate, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still believes the law can speak with a conscience when the right judge is on the bench.